Have you ever wondered what actually happens to all that money from organized crime? You know, the billions and billions of dollars? Well, it doesn't just get stuffed under a mattress. It goes on this secret journey to get clean. So today, we are going to follow that money. We're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden world of global money laundering. It's a system that fuels corruption, funds terrorism, and keeps criminal empires running. I know, it sounds like the setup to a really bad joke, right? But this is a real-world example of something called trade-based money laundering. Criminals will create these fake invoices for totally normal stuff, but they jack up the prices to these absurd levels. It's just one of the many, many creative and honestly pretty wild ways that dirty money snakes its way across the globe. So what are we really talking about when we say money laundering? The UN has this formal definition, but the key word, the whole point of the exercise, is concealment. The entire goal is to take money from crime, say drug trafficking or cybercrime, and wash it, so it looks like it came from a totally legitimate source. It's all about creating a fake but convincing backstory for the cash. You know, this whole process, it pretty much always breaks down into 3 classic stages. And this is going to be our roadmap for this explainer. First, placement. You got to get the cash into the financial system. Then, layering. You have to hide it. And finally, integration. You bring it all back looking squeaky clean. Let's kick things off with step 1. This is placement, and it is all about getting that physical, illicit cash into a legitimate financial institution, like a bank. Now, this is often the most dangerous part of the whole scheme for the criminal, because moving huge piles of cash around, well, it tends to attract the wrong kind of attention. So how do they get around that? Well, one of the go-to moves is a technique called structuring. See, in places like the United States, banks have to report any cash transaction that's over $10,000. So what do the criminals do? They get clever. They make sure their deposits fly just under that radar. And this number right here shows you exactly how it works. Instead of making one big, obvious $50,000 deposit, a launderer will just break it up. They'll make 5 separate deposits, each one just under that $10,000 limit. Every single transaction on its own looks way less suspicious, and crucially, it avoids triggering that automatic government report. And to make it even tougher to spot, they don't do it themselves. No way. They hire a whole team of people. And get this, they're nicknamed smurfs, to hop from bank to bank, making all these small, structured deposits. It sounds simple, but it's a ridiculously effective way to inject huge sums of cash into the banking system without setting off any alarm bells. Of course, structuring isn't the only trick up their sleeve. Another classic is to blend dirty money into a legitimate cash-heavy business. Think restaurants, car washes, laundromats. Or they might walk into a casino, buy a mountain of chips with cash, play a few hands, and then cash out with a check from the casino. That check, it now looks like legitimate winnings. Okay, so the cash is in the system. Now comes the real magic trick, layering. This is where the launderers create a dizzying financial maze. They build this complex web of transactions that are specifically designed to hide where the money came from, making it nearly impossible for investigators to trace it back to the original crime. This, right here, is the engine room of global crime. And the number 1 tool for layering? The shell company. These are basically fake companies. They exist only on paper, no office, no employees, no actual business. Their only purpose is to hold money and, most importantly, hide the identity of the person who really owns it. They often set these up in offshore jurisdictions that have super strict secrecy laws, which makes them the perfect hiding spot. Just look at the difference here. It's night and day. On one side, you have a regular public company where ownership is public and there's tons of regulation. On the other side, you've got a shell company, which is basically a financial black box. It's designed from the ground up for secrecy and anonymity. That's exactly what makes it the perfect vehicle for moving dirty money. And believe me, this isn't just some abstract theory. This happens in the real world, big time. A bombshell New York Times investigation called Towers of Secrecy found that almost half of the most expensive homes in America are bought using these anonymous shell companies. They found all sorts of shady characters, from corrupt foreign officials to people under active investigation, hiding behind shell companies to buy multi-million-dollar condos in New York City. And besides shell companies, launderers have a whole toolkit. They send money through these incredibly complex chains of wire transfers that bounce between dozens of countries. They use something called correspondent banking to basically piggyback on the services of a bigger, more established bank. And they use so-called gatekeepers, like lawyers and accountants, to wrap their transactions in layers of legal privilege and complexity. So, the money's in, the trial's gone cold, what's next? This is the final act, integration. This is the finish line. It's where the laundered money, now totally disconnected from its criminal past, re-enters the legitimate economy. It might look like a clean profit, a legal inheritance, or just a normal investment. A really, really popular way to do this is by buying high-end real estate. Snapping up a luxury apartment, a mansion, or some commercial property gives the criminal a stable, valuable, and perfectly legitimate-looking asset. They can live in it, rent it out for a clean income stream, or sell it later, claiming the money is just from a smart real estate deal. Another favorite route is the world of high-value portable goods. We're talking fine art, diamonds, gold bullion. These things are super attractive because they hold their value, the history of who owned them can be incredibly murky and hard to trace, and you can literally carry millions of dollars worth across a border in a briefcase. And of course, what's the point of all that dirty money if you can't enjoy it, right? So you see a lot of it go into things like exotic cars and massive yachts. It's a way to both live the high life and turn those illegal profits into tangible, legitimate assets. This was a huge part of the infamous 1MDB scandal, where an $80 million yacht was seized because it was bought with stolen money. And in speaking of 1MDB, that whole scandal is like the textbook case for money laundering, especially the integration stage. We're talking about billions of dollars stolen from a Malaysian state fund, washed through this massive global network, and then used to buy everything from luxury hotels and Picasso paintings to, get this, funding the Hollywood movie The Wolf of Wall Street. You can't make this stuff up. The sheer scale of this is just mind-boggling. Estimates put it at trillions of dollars laundered every single year. And that's not just numbers on a page. That's money that corrupt politicians use to steal from their own citizens. It's money that funds human trafficking, and it keeps violent drug cartels in business. That's why there is a massive, coordinated global effort trying to fight back. But here's the thing. It's a constant game of cat and mouse. Every time the good guys get wise to a technique, the bad guys invent a new one. And now, technology is blowing the whole game wide open, creating brand new challenges for investigators. So, what does this new frontier actually look like? The future of money laundering is digital. Virtual currencies like Bitcoin offer this powerful combination of speed and anonymity that criminals absolutely love. The darknet acts as a global, anonymous marketplace for illegal goods, all paid for with crypto. And then there are these services called mixers that can tumble and jumble the digital money trail, making this the next huge battleground in the fight. So who's actually fighting this battle? Well, it's a team effort, really. At the very top, you have the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. They're an international group that sets the global standards, the rules of the game. Then, each country has its own Financial Intelligence Unit, or FIU. They're the ones who analyze all the suspicious activity reports sent in by the banks. But really, the true frontline? It's the banks themselves. They're legally required to be the watchdogs, monitoring trillions of transactions for those red flags. And that leaves us with a final, pretty sobering thought. The global financial system is unimaginably huge, and criminals are always one step ahead, always innovating. As regulators and law enforcement play this constant, high-stakes game of cat and mouse, you really have to wonder, is this a fight that can ever truly be won?